What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is going to be the Justice League Fantasy Podcast, run by the Justice League Commissioner, John Reeder. Hi, welcome. Welcome to the Justice League. This great and historic league has been going on for 5 seasons now. I believe this will be our 6th season. And it may not be that long for some of the other league owners out there, but the Justice League has been forming over a decade. So it's more than just the 6 year league. It's the history of the clubs and the owners and the rivalries that make this league so great. And so that is why we come together each year to partake in this wonderful competition of fantasy football. So just recapping, or just to summarize real quick, we've been doing 5 seasons. Started out as a 6-man league, very exclusive. You had to be on a well-known list, or you had to be on a list to get in, really. And we started it with 6 because of the idea that 6 players will be in the league, will have really high scoring games because everyone's just going to have the the best teams, right? Wrong. We stunk. We weren't any good. The first season I was good. I think I win. No, the first season I was horrible. That's why we did have a couple good competitors in the first season. The first season I was horrible, but everyone is going to make the playoffs since it's only 6 teams, and we want to be inclusive in that regard. Is if you got invited to the league, that means you were prestigious enough to be in the league, which means you should have an automatic ticket to the playoffs no matter what. In time, that would come to change, but that's how we started. 6 mans, everyone who made the playoffs, and I made a historic run. I took my losing record team and we went and thrashed everyone and won the first ever Justice League Fantasy Football Championship. The next year was wrought with turmoil. No, not that bad. Just the only turmoil we had was a league manager was failing to properly uphold his team to the quality that this league demands, and thus we had to make some changes. We did not kick him from the. We did not remove that owner from the league quite yet, but we brought in a new owner, one that arguably should have been on the list when the league first began, and that man is Zach J. And so he came in, turned the club around completely, won maybe 3 games out of maybe I forget exactly how it goes, but we'll credit him with 3 wins in the last 5 or so games of the regular season. Then he took his losing record team because they had been losing all season and won the fantasy championship. So we had this cool little um we had this cool little theme going, or not theme, but this charm or curse if you're a regular season competitor, but charm if you were a regular season loser. That the player with the worst regular season record would go on and win the championship. Anyways, I think we had expanded to 8 players by then. No, nay, that is false. We were still only at 6 players. And the next season, 2017, we expanded to 8 players. And this is when the competition started getting good. We had a fantastic season. A lot of good teams, a lot of good competition, a lot of very neutral records. But our regular season champ went 9-3, and had a great season. It was his first season in the league, I believe. Let me check myself. Yeah, it was definitely his first season in the league, and he did well. He went on and That man was Luke W. He went on and got to the championship game, but he was taken down by a regular, one of the original six, one of the inductees, Matthew D. He was taken down by Matthew D., henceforth known as Matthew. I'm just going to call him Matthew. Same with Luke and Zach. Luke W. is just going to be Luke. Zach J. is just going to be Zach. It was a great final and well won by Matthew. The next year, we expanded again to 10 players. 10 players in 2018. The 2018 season, we had 10 players, which was really exciting expansion for us. You know, people bash on the lower count leagues, but we didn't, hear the noise. We just wanted to keep our fantasy pure and fun. And we were nervous to do this expansion, but it worked out for the better. It only made better competition. The next season, we had 3 teams go 9-3, which did lead to some poor records, but overall, it was a great season. Our 2 inductees performed admirably. They both made the final. Or am I going crazy? No, the one inductee, Connor S., he made the final. Tristan had been inducted in 2017. He also made the final. Great competition. 2 9-3 teams. Both deserved to be in the final. And Tristan ended up taking the win. And so he was the first non-original 16 to win the championship. 2019, another great season. This is when the power rankings started in 2019. And the power rankings would flourish the season and just make for some good reading, some good fun, and some good banter between everyone. And this season was also, I think, one of the first seasons that we introduced this idea of divisions. So you know how fantasy football has divisions. We had a 10-man league, so we've got 2 divisions of 5 players. And this was the inaugural, I think maybe in 2018 we did it, but I'm not positive, don't quote me, of these divisions. So we've got the Dwight Army of Champions and the Loser Slack Offs like Jim. So the Dwight Army of Champions would feature the top 5 finishers from the previous season's playoffs. So not your regular season record, the playoffs, how you did in the playoffs. So the 4th and 5th place, the battle for 5th place, between 6th and 5th, and that playoff game, that became very important because you either got to stay up in the top division or you were relegated. And it's mainly bragging rights being in the top division. We don't have anything really settled on it yet, but I'm thinking there will be some evolution there in the future in which it will actually mean something besides bragging rights to be in the top division. Okay, so we had this new found divisional thing, and it made for some fun, in my opinion. We again had a good season, and what was the good feature about this was we had an original 6 club that was maybe falling below standards, turn it around, and go 10-3. It was fantastic season for everyone. A lot of great competition, a lot of very neutral records. So everyone was beating up on each other. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 7-6 teams, 1 8-5 team, 1, 2, 3, 5-8 teams. So a lot of tough competition. The bad thing, though, was Connor, the previous year's not champion, but stellar standout player, fumbled the bag. He fumbled the bag and he dropped down to 10th. So that was another shock. But we'll take it back. Last season, 2020, COVID year. What a season. 2019, I didn't even mention. We had a repeat of the 2017 final. It was Matthew versus Luke again. Great scenes. The town was alight. It was an exciting final. Went down to the wire, and Luke came away with the win. So he redeemed himself in the rematch, and became our second ever expansion team winner. All right, skipping ahead to 2020 was a very fun season. The power rankings were much bigger this year than they had ever been. much more analysis being done, much more stat keeping being done. We now have a stat sheet about the best players to grace the Justice League, and so it just made for some fun. And I personally could talk about this season for probably 3 hours. I would love to go through every game with you and just look at the record, look at every game, look at every player, look at every move that I made, and just go on about it. I could talk for forever about it, but I will leave you at this. I did my draft research, not crazy in depth, but I did it enough such that I was actually satisfied with my draft. Like I usually am satisfied, but this time it was more than satisfaction. It was elation. I was elated with the team that I got. ESPN graded me second overall. Zach Jennings, however, in his draft rankings, was not as big of a fan. He gave me top five, I'm pretty sure, but and I agree. I mean, who would have thought, that I could have done what I did? And so I went 11-2. There was just no stopping the train. The two losses were deserved losses. They were bad. Like I did not put out good lineups those weeks. I can blame injuries all I want, but that's just the fact that I didn't put out good lineups. And there was just no stopping the train, man. I rolled over everyone right into the playoffs, and I became the first repeat champion of the Justice League. It was me and Aaron. Aaron was also an original six member, but he was the team manager in that 2016 season that we had to demote. We had to remove from the league due to inactivity, but because he proved his worthiness again, he was welcomed back into the league, and he's been stellar ever since. So we love having him in the league. All right, so hopefully that catches you up to speed on what this league's semi history is. So basically, we had an original six. We expanded twice. We've had expansion teams go out and win it. We've had original six teams go out and win it. But what we like to say in the Justice League playoffs is you never know what's going to happen. So we can do even more depth, and there may be a Justice League documentary coming out. There may be. We haven't written the script for it, but it might happen. So just to get you maybe excited about it. But anyways, Justice League podcast 2021. Let's talk about it. So this year we've got a returning player. Very excited to have him back. We finally have Aiden C. Aiden, he is back in the league. He is going to be co-owning a team with Justin R, aka Justin, and they because of this renewal into the league. Usually, I like to give whoever's coming back into the league or whoever's coming into the league. I try to give them a top picks in the draft, just out of respect. And so Aiden will be taking the first overall draft pick. He will be co-owning Team the J-Man Show with Justin. The main reason I did that, though, is because I admit it, I am too nervous to get this text from Justin. Whoa, why did you kick me out of the fantasy league? I do have facts and data to back my point up, which is, well, you don't check your lineups, and you haven't checked them for years now. We do appreciate his competition, but we just want some activity, and it's a little bit more fun to text in our group chat about it and interact with the power rankings, because Aiden might be a little bit more willing to read that. I don't think Justin did. He might have a couple times, but not sure. So anyways, great to have Aiden back in the league. He will be taking the first overall pick, and we can go through the draft order, I guess, if that something that might be interesting. I think that would be a good thing to go through real quick. So, like I said, Aiden is coming back, first overall pick, and so the way we do the draft order in the Justice League is the inverse of the previous year's standings. Excuse me. So that means if you got first in 2019, you'd be last in the 2020 pick. As in, not the 2019 draft, but if you won the championship in 2019, you will be picking 10th in the 2020 draft. We do a snake draft. We usually do it online. This year, we're going to try to do some people in person, some people on Zoom. It will still be online, but at least we'll have that face-to-face. Because in previous years, I don't know why it's been so hard to get us all together, but in previous years, it's been too tough to get everyone together to do this draft. So Aiden will be picking first. Next on the list will be Alex K. So Alex is also an original six member. He's been in the league since the beginning, and he's earned his spot. We can talk about that in the documentary. You can find more about that. So watch the documentary when it comes out, if it comes out. He has good stats. He has had good stats, but in recent years he hasn't checked his lineup, even though he tweets about fantasy football. But he doesn't check his lineup in our league. So we are a little bit salty about that in the Justice League. But you know what? It's no worries, Alex. You know, because we know that you've always wanted to be part of this league, and we gave you the shot. But if you want to toss your chance away, that's okay. Because we will stick by you. We want you in this league. But anyways, last season he had like a medium season. I mean, his team was like fantastic, but then it got so many injuries, and so it just, and he wasn't checking his lineup really. I think he maybe said it twice, maybe, and but it was enough because I think he ended up winning a couple like fluke games against some other players that having a bad year. But in the playoffs, he got smacked up by his competitor. He didn't even make the winners bracket. He was just in the consolation ladder. So in the playoffs, we send 8 out of the 10 teams to the playoffs. So he wasn't even a part of that 8. He did not make the cut. So he was in the consolation ladder. Played the same guy 3 times in a row. Lost all 3 times in a row. And so that means he finished 10th in the league. But like I said, because I like to have new members pick first or early, I gave Aiden the number 1 spot, and I bumped Alex down to number 2, which I don't think is that unreasonable because, I mean, he's either going to get Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, or who else is in the top 3? I don't know, Melvin Gordon or something like that, which is fantastic. So I hope he's not mad about getting second pick. Then comes Zach, who was the guy that beat Alex 3 times in a row. And I've just seen that he's changed his name. So his team name for this year, at least to start the season, will be Big HR Guy. So he will be picking 3rd. Then we've got Tristan, who will be picking 4th. Connor will be picking 5th. His classic team name is Dominus Natural. So he's one to keep his team name. A couple other us, we like to change our team names around. Personally, I like to change my team name, keep it fresh each year. Matthew will be picking 6th. Luke will be picking 7th. Matt will be picking 8th. He had a mediocre season, but a fantastic playoff run. Aaron will be picking 9th. I played against Aaron in the championship, and since I won the season, I will be picking 10th. So it will be interesting to see how we go. Last season, we had a quarterback picked 3rd overall, which was controversial at the time, but the pick was made by Aaron, but he ended up getting into the championship game. So we were all clowning him and stuff for picking a quarterback 3rd overall. Because, I mean, no one does that in these years of fantasy football. I mean, maybe, depending on your league, it's worth it to pick quarterbacks in the first round. But we just play ESPN standard format. No PPR, just head-to-head. And we're introducing decimals this year. So, I mean, you got to pick a running back. You got to pick a running back in that first round, especially for picks 1, 2, or 3. Because, I mean, I had Derrick Henry on my team, and that's basically why I won the game, because he's their whole offense. He runs like 1,000 carries per game. So he just racks up points in these head to heads. And personally, I like the head to head. I know other people like PPR, and we were thinking about PPR, but I just like head to head. So, anyways, where was I going with that? So, I guess the only other thing we can talk about on today's show is going to be the draft. And we already mentioned all the changes we're making. We didn't mention all the changes. So, this year, the playoff format will be new. So, we've been allowing 8 players into the playoffs. And, we've been allowing 8 players into the playoffs. So that means doesn't mean, well, I hate to say that it negates the regular season, because I really don't think it negates the regular season. I mean, you still need to work to make sure you're not one of the last 2 teams, which I guess isn't that hard, but you still need to work, and I don't know. Nonetheless, we made the change from 8 teams because we were feeling that it was a little bit, maybe not gratuitous is the word. I don't know why that came to my head, but it was a little bit too easy, I suppose, to make the playoffs. And we had a little bit more competition. One of the arguments was we don't want like no name teams knocking out teams that should make a long run or whatever, quote unquote long run, in the early rounds. But my argument was that, well, that's the reason I introduced so many teams in the playoff, was because I wanted, some Cinderella stories. And that's what this league was based off of for the first 2 years, the Cinderella stories. That's what brought this league into prominence. But now that, our growth has kind of leveled off a little bit, and I think people are invested in the league, I don't think there will be too much of a problem from removing the possibility of Cinderella stories. So that is where I will leave that. But I'm excited about our new playoff format. So what is going to happen is 5 teams are going to make the playoffs. So we cut it down from 8 to 5. So it's still I still like it because I guess it's not that big of a Cinderella story, but 5 teams can make the playoffs, which I think is interesting because it's half the league, so you still at least have to be better than half the league to make the playoffs. It's not like, everyone's let in, but there's still that chance that, someone on the cusp can make a run in the playoffs. Maybe cusp is the wrong word, but someone who, is maybe not like the big boss of the season. Everyone still has to focus up and win their games. So we're going to have 5 teams. So we're still going to have 3 rounds: round 1, round 2, and a championship. So how this will work is it's basically going to be 3 teams automatically make it, and there's 1 playoff game. So the number 1, number 2, and number 3 ranked teams will all have a bye, quote unquote, in the first round, which we do. First round is week 15. We do weeks 15, 16, and 17. We used to do weeks 14, 15, and 16, but since they expanded the NFL season by 1 week, we now do 15, 16, 17. And it'll be interesting because it's going to be a little bit experimental, because who knows, like, how much the teams are going to be planning to play their star players in week 17. Usually, the second to last week, they will take out some of their star players in the second half, but for the most part, they will have enough playing time to, have an impact. So, anyways, we're going to keep it 15, 16, 17 for now. So, round 1, week 15, 1, 2, and 3 will have a bye, and there will be a play-in game. So it's more like 4 teams make the playoffs in reality, with 1 play-in game. So ranks number 4 and number 5 will play to get the number 4 spot, quote unquote, and then there will be the semis, and then the championship. So I think it'll be really fun because of how exclusive it's going to be. This is going to be, you're going to have to fight harder than you've ever had to fight to get into the Justice League playoffs. And it's just going to make it all the more exclusive, and it will make that semifinal game tough. The one thing that I don't like about it is that you don't have to battle for as long. There are only, like, you only have to win 2 games to win the championship. So that's what kind of bums me out. I do kind of like the idea of, like, you have to be, top of your game. You have to win 3 games straight. Because in my opinion, I think it's very hard to win 3 games straight in fantasy football. Like, you have to pick the right players for 3 weeks straight. You have to, it's lucky, fantasy football, there is luck for sure. So, but still, like, it's tough to win 3 games straight. I went 11-2, and that was like a miraculous run. Like, I was going crazy. But even if you do go, like, 9-4, if you go 9-4, either you had a really bad lose streak, or you've had a couple losses in there. You probably only went 3 games straight with a win like one time. Like, it's tough, in my opinion. It's tough to win 3 games straight. So that's what I liked about having 3 rounds in the 8 players. But I think this will be an interesting format. And then the converse to that argument. The converse to that argument is that, well, now you have to be even better in the regular season. So you have to win more games in the regular season to secure your spot. And you have to win more important games to secure your spot. And then make it into the exclusive, like, it's much more exclusive. So you have to work harder in the regular season than you do in the playoff season, which is, like, fair. I don't know. I just think there's maybe a little bit more glory in the, like, putting together a little bit of a streak, even though it's only 3 games. But it's like I was saying, I think 3 games is tough to streak together. Anyways, we're going to have 5 players. It's going to be super exclusive. It's going to be super exciting. That's what we're hoping for here in the Justice League. And it'll be a great time. Another thing we need to think about in the Justice League, though, in constructing these playoffs, is how do we want to decide the top 5? So what we can do is the top 2 from each division, and then the next best 3 make it, or we just do the top 5 in general. So even though it'd be very unlikely, if 5 teams from the top division are all better than the teams from the bottom division, or vice versa, then all 5 would make the playoffs. And then we could do top 4 in general, and then just for fun, we could do, like, the 5th person is decided by committee. I know that there will be some backlash in there from some players about wanting to do a committee, but I think it's fun, having committees, and we could have a nice fun debate on who would make the 5th team, and people would make their case for being that 5th team. I think it'd be fun. I know there's a player out there, or I don't know, but I have a hunch that there is a player in our league who may be opposed to that. We'll leave it at that. And then I was also thinking, well, maybe we can make it a 6-man playoff. So the 2 division winners make it automatically, and the next 4 teams would play in. So instead of 1 playing game, there'd be, like, 2 playing games. And then maybe there'd be top 3 in general, and then the top... I don't know what that no was, but anyways, just some possibilities of how we could decide that top 5. I think the best way, in my opinion, is to do top 2 from each division, and then the next best, or just let ESPN decide it. I'm not sure. We'll figure it out when we get there, though. So what I want to cover in these last, half hour, 15 minutes, not sure how long I want to make this podcast, especially this first one, is drafting. So I am going to talk a little bit more about me in this last little bit and how I'm planning my draft strategy. So the first mock draft I did was embarrassingly early. It was April 25th, 2021. And it was because I was gassed. So I know I'm picking 10, so I try to put myself in that pick 10 spot, in the ESPN mock drafts. You can pick your spot, where you're going. So I picked number 10. I was in a league of all computers. I was the only human mock drafting, which makes sense. I mean, who else mock drafts in April? Only crazy people. So what I did in this first mock draft was at number 10, I took Cam Akers, and then round 2, pick 1, aka 11th overall, I took Antonio Gibson. So I'm going to be following the same strategy as last year. Big surprise of picking running backs. I mean, running backs are everything in the way that we score our league. Maybe that's an exaggeration. I guess I would say, I mean, they kind of are, though. Like, you can also say in opposition to that, like, oh, great, you can have 2 running backs, but if your wide receivers are crap, like, you can still be outscored by just a more well-balanced team. And that's true. So, but I just prefer the running back strategy. Because, this has just been from years of practice and drafting and analyzing my past years. I've just never really had, a core set of running backs. And so, because I used to go, running back, wide receiver in rounds 1 and 2, or wide receiver, running back in rounds 1 and 2. And so you kind of miss out on, like a really good core group. Like, it's a little bit more well balanced, but I think it's a little bit more risky because if one of those, if you're round 1 or round 2 running back ends up getting injured, then you're now dependent on a round 3 or round 4 running back to lead your team. And so that can be, not great. Like, I think round 3 and round 4 wide receivers from the wide receiver position, they can definitely lead your team a little bit better. Like, I don't know. That's just how I look at it. So after, years of failure, trial and error, I've found that I prefer to have a team in my eyes looks a little bit more solid when you can look at your running backs and really not be concerned about injuries or bye weeks. So I took Akers and Gibson in rounds 1 and 2. And interestingly enough, I took another running back in round 3, Chris Carson. So my starting lineup was going to be Gibson, Akers, and Carson. And then round 4, I took Darren Waller. I was really impressed with Darren Waller's season last year. Can he do it again? I don't know, but I think so. I mean, he was just dominant out there. Like, that was a world-class performance in 2020. And I really don't see why he couldn't do it again. So I'm high on Darren Waller. I don't think at this stage he's going to fall to me, but we'll get to that later. And then rounds 5 and 6, I took my first wide receiver, which was T. Higgins, and then Myles Gaskin in round 6. So a very interesting draft. I'm pretty sure I was pretty happy with the team that I ended up with. I don't know exactly who I ended up with, but my strategy has changed since then. I did a couple more where I took Akers and then Chubb in rounds 1 and 2, and then Najee Harris and Darren Waller. But these again were still with a heavy computer based drafts. Like there was all computers. I wasn't drafting against other teams. I was just drafting against the computer. And so it took a minute, but the first draft that I really had with a good set of people in it, can't find it. I thought it was much earlier than that. But okay, so I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Unfortunately, I didn't get the draft spot that I wanted, but I was at draft spot 9 rather than 10, which actually ended up being an interesting difference because I was able to take Jonathan Taylor which is interesting. I was able to take Jonathan Taylor at 9 and then Cam Akers at 12. And then I snagged Adam Thielen and Chris Carson in 3 and 4, which is not a bad opening 4. So let me see. I'm still going through. I did an embarrassing large amount of drafts. I don't know why. It's just been something to do. Okay, here we go. First fantasy football draft. It was a pro 10-team mock. And it was filled. So it was all people. And so in this one, I totally panicked. In this mock draft, and I was not happy with how it ended up. I took Diggs at 10, Akers at 11. No offense to Diggs, but I gotta take that wide. I gotta take a running back. I'm almost positive I'm gonna go running back at 10 and 11, both positions. Still deciding on what to do around 3 and 4. Haven't perfectly shaped it, but I'm almost guaranteed going running back rounds 1 and 2. So in this draft I went, I'm definitely panicked because there were people in there, and this was the first time picking with people. So we're in Diggs, Akers. Round 3 and 4, I did Miles Sanders, Adam Thielen, which is, I kind of like this team so far. Akers, Sanders, Thielen, Diggs, like that's a pretty impressive core 4. One of the problems with my drafting usually though is I only use previous year's vision. So I'm like, oh yeah, this player had a great season last year. I'm gonna pick him again. And I think that hampers me a little bit. I need to be a little bit more future focused and optimistic. And what happened in 2020 that I think helped was the ESPN fantasy football special or whatever. There's this 3-hour event on ESPN about fantasy football and picking people. It was on at the same time as our draft, so I got to see 3 different expert teams, and one of them had the same draft position as I did. And so I didn't draft their same team, but the players that the rounds that I wasn't so sure about, and some of the players that I had drafted that they had said, this player was available, but I prefer, I think this person, that made such a difference because they gave me that future sight. And so that helped, immensely. So I was able to make a couple player picks that I wouldn't have even thought to make. So anyways, my point being is Sanders, Thielen, Diggs, and Akers were a little bit looking back. I think Akers, obviously at the time this is coming out, he's been injured, but when I did this draft, I didn't know that. Akers, he's definitely got a future this year for sure. But Sanders, I feel like that might have been risky. I guess the most glaring one is Adam Thielen. Is yes, he's a great player, but can he have another great season this year? I don't know. So what was my point in saying all that? I don't know. But I ended up taking Prescott in round 5. But I think I panicked because these guys took quarterbacks super early. Mahomes was picked in round 3, which maybe isn't that crazy early, but Mahomes was picked round 3. This one was the craziest. Kyler Murray was picked round 5. And then that made another person take Justin Herbert round 5. So I was like, oh my God, I got to snag a quarterback. So I picked Dak Prescott and then Cooper Kupp in round 6. I feel just like Cooper Kupp is going to be getting balls slaying at him from Stafford. So now my draft strategy hasn't completely changed, but a more recent draft that I did July 7th. I kind of don't remember doing this one, so I don't know if this is good to go off of. But I took Chubb and Akers in round 1 and 2, and I really liked that one too. I would have loved, even though Akers is injured now, I would have loved to have Chubb and Akers as my running backs. I think that would have been a great starting draft. My only problem is I can't figure out who I should pick round 3 because it's so variable. I gotta figure that out. I gotta figure out my round 3 pick. In this one draft that I'm looking at, I took Amari Cooper in the 4th round, which is interesting because I'm not sure if he deserves 4th round. That seems a little early, but when you're at number 10, you really can't. You can't. You're kind of a beggar. No, you're not a beggar. You're in a position where you have to go. Like if you can't be like you're the players you pick are all going to be kind of out of whack. Like they're not going to be, you know, exactly where you want him. Because Amari Cooper, right, he might not be a round 4 pick. But I don't get another pick until the end of round 5. So, like even though he might be a round 5 pick, like my round 5 pick is number 10. So it's the end of round 5. It's basically a round 6 pick. And, Cooper is definitely not going to drop all the way back to round 6, I don't think. I think he's a very good wide receiver. So you kind of have to snatch a player a little bit earlier than he would go so that you get the team that you want. Because you can't, at the position, when you're at a position, I mean, same thing for every position really is you can't really wait around and just like be like, okay, I'm gonna hope that he's available in the next round. You have to be confident in the pick that you make, and you have to be like, I want this player, so I'm just gonna go get him now. I'm not gonna risk, the wait, unless you like really are like, I could have this player. If you're like, I could have this player, then you can do that. But if you want a player, you gotta go get him, so that at the end of the draft, you're happy with the team that you picked. That's what I think. That's my opinion on it. So, anyways, what else is there to say? Now that Akers is injured, I got to come up with another pick. So I did a draft, another mock draft. It was a beginner though, so it's not a great representation of what might happen because a lot of people in beginner, even though they join, they end up going auto pick, so it doesn't help that much. But what I was happy to see is Zeke. ESPN dropped Zeke down to 11th. And my buddy, Zach, who had a poor season last year, Zeke was his first round pick. He hates Zeke, but I'm pretty happy that Zeke's at 11th now. Because that means I can get him. And I kind of want him. And the reason I want him is because I'm hoping Dak Prescott's going to be back and fully healthy. And I think he's going to change the team. I mean, I think with Dak Prescott at quarterback, Zeke is going to be all that more explosive because people will have to, defenses are going to have to respect Dak. Obviously, the coaching staff needs to sort themselves out to help out the offense as well in Dallas. But I'm excited at the prospect of being able to get Zeke. So in this most recent mock draft that I did, I took Zeke at 10 and then Aaron Jones at 11 because Chubb was taken at 9. If I could get Chubb and Zeke as my 2 running backs, I think that'd be a great running back partnership. I don't mind Aaron Jones and Zeke, especially if Rodgers leaves Green Bay, because they're going to have, not a rookie quarterback, but a sophomore quarterback who hasn't played a starting snap yet. So they're probably going to rely on their run game a little bit. And Aaron Jones is a solid running back. So my only concerns are going to be if he gets injured this season or not. Because he's been playing so long, sometimes injuries catch up to running backs. They stay pure for so often. But after, taking so many hits to the knees and the shins and the ankles and the hips, it starts to wear on him. So I'm hoping Jones, if I do pick Jones, he'd last for one more season, but it's not a guarantee. But I'd still be pretty happy with Zeke and Jones or Zeke and Chubb. That is what I'm thinking I'm aiming for round 1 and 2. Sitting here looking at pick number 10. I think that'd be a great start to the draft. Say what you will about Zeke, but I think he could definitely, make his comeback this season, have a comeback season. So what did I do round 3 and 4? Round 3, I took J.K. Dobbins and Adam Thielen. So J.K. Dobbins is a bit of a risky pick, in my opinion, because of how Baltimore, runs their offense with Lamar Jackson back there. There's upside to it for sure, and low key, if I don't like my, round 3 or 4 pick, I would consider trading, whatever I end up choosing to be my round 3 or 4 pick. I would consider trading for J.K. Dobbins, or maybe I could get lucky and whatever team takes him, he doesn't have a great first, 2 or 3 games. Hopefully, maybe his stock would go down and I could trade for him and get him on my team because I do want J.K. Dobbins on my team. I think he's a great running back and on a great team, but it's just the way that the Ravens run their offense and how many snaps he gets, how many touches he gets. It's really not all that often, but he did finish out his last season with a pretty good stat line. A stat line of 70 yards, 1 touchdown. I'm just going to do rushing. 71 yards, 1 touchdown. 53 yards, 1 touchdown. 64 yards, 1 touchdown. 77 yards, 1 touchdown, and then finished the season 160 yards, 2 touchdowns. So he struggles to break 100 yards, but he's pretty consistently getting, the goal line touches, or he's getting the touches that are close enough that allow him to get a touchdown, which is what you want to see in a fantasy player, and that's what makes me so excited. And I ended up watching a lot of Baltimore football at the end of last season, and so I do see how he is utilized, and it is positive, but is it good enough? I don't know. That's why round 3, I really need to figure it out. Round 3, I'm kind of in a dead zone. Like my round 3 and 4 picks are kind of in like a no man's land. Like there's no standout player that comes in at overall number 30 or 31. So I'm just gonna have to I don't know. I'm gonna have to study more to make that solid pick, or I might have to take someone. I might have to do it. I might have to take Dobbins in round 3 and just suffer that bad pick. So I don't know. We'll figure it out. But what's interesting is I accidentally ended up going. Oh, and then I took Adam Thielen again. I think I am going to take Adam Thielen because I don't know. I just have confidence, in him and the Minnesota Vikings. I know it might be foolish, but he's just like their number 1 wide receiver, and maybe Justin Jefferson popping up and being another great wide receiver that maybe, in a sense, will draw some attention away from Thielen. That is some defensive coordinator attention away from Thielen, and maybe he'll get a couple more touches because they'll focus, defenses may focus up on Jefferson. I don't know. Anyways, round 4, 3, and 4, still trying to sort it out, but I would it is interesting that I'm taking 3 running backs in a row. I think I do want to do that. I think I do want that because I do, especially if I do take Zeke or Jones, because I want to have that backup option. There, just in case one of them gets injured or just in case it isn't going to be a return season for Zeke. So I do want that 3rd option. And in round 4, there are still, good wide receivers on the board. Like Adam Thielen's there, Michael Thomas is there, Allen Robinson's there, Keenan Allen, CeeDee Lamb, Mike Evans, Terry McLaurin. Those are some of the players that are still, up for grabs in round 4, or close to my pick in round 4. Then round 5. Interesting. Round 5, I made a couple risky picks. I gotta have to wrap this up soon. Round 5, I made a couple interesting picks. I went Brandon Ayuk, round 5, which I do like Brandon Ayuk. Is he round 5 material though? I don't know, but I know the reason I took him was because someone took Cooper Kupp right before me, and I want Cooper Kupp on my team. And I do like Brandon Ayuk, so I wasn't that mad that I got him, but the only problem is he doesn't have a quarterback throwing to him. But they do find ways to get him the ball, and he's an explosive player. So I wouldn't be mad if he was on my team. I do want him on my team. But it definitely is an interesting round 5 pick. So round 5, I went Brandon Ayuk. And so when I do take 3 running backs in a row, I end up scrambling a little bit for wide receivers, which I don't mind because I don't mind scrambling for wide receivers because they're so easy to pick up and drop off the bench. It's easy to do, especially against defenses this one team has a horrible pass defense. I'll just pick up, this player for the week. And wide receivers, they're always getting injured and missing games here and there. So as long as you snag their backup off the waiver wire, you shouldn't be in too bad a shape. Same thing said for running backs, though. So whatever. I just prefer you know, the latter. So, or the former. And then I picked Jamar Chase, which is controversial, but I'm going to depend on that chemistry between him and Burrow. And I think Burrow is a great quarterback, so I want a Cincinnati wide receiver. Foolish as it may seem, I want a Cincinnati wide receiver on my team this year. T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, or that other dude. I'd take any three of them. I just want one of those guys on my team. Now, this is where it doesn't get interesting. It just gets kind of funny. Is because I was like, you know what? I don't pick for another 20 picks. I'm just going to go on TikTok for a minute and come back and make my picks for round 7 and 8. So I go on TikTok. I come back and I'm like, I think it's round 7 and 8 because I'm on the clock. Like I was like, oh, perfect. I timed it perfectly. Like the team before me had just picked, and so it's now my pick. I didn't look at the round, but I was like, oh my god, where are all the players? Where'd they go? I've wanted these players to be picked, and there's like, how the heck did they get all these great players? Picked up in these 20 picks. Like they just took them all. Turns out I came in for round 9 and 10. Wasn't back in time for 7 and 8. I was back in time for round 9 and 10. So I missed my 2 picks. But they were also, the computer just knew. The computer knew that I wanted these guys. And thank goodness he did, because I ended up loving the 2 picks that the computer made. So the computer took for me in round 7, 70th overall, Justin Herbert. I think if that happens in my fantasy draft, that is going to be a steal. I'd love Justin Herbert at 70th overall. I think he's going to be just fine this season. Maybe not like, I took Josh Allen in round 7 or 8 or 9 last season, something crazy like that. And that was like the best late round pick I've ever had. I don't think Herbert's going to have a season like Josh Allen did last season, but I think he's going to be good. A great round 7, round 8 quarterback. So I'd love to have him there. And then it took Travis Etienne Jr., which round 8, which is a risk for sure because he's going on the Jaguars and the Jaguars suck. But they're being a Michigan fan. I think it's just I've become so wary of Urban Meyer, because he's just smacked up Michigan every year. Doesn't matter what team he has. Doesn't matter anything. He just beats Michigan, and maybe my vision is, or my thought of him as a coach is skewed from that. But I just have a feeling he's gonna kill it. I don't know why. I just have a feeling he's gonna kill it. He's got a good team. He doesn't have a good team, but I have a feeling he's gonna build a good team. He's gonna just be Urban Meyer. He's gonna be himself. He's gonna be a fantastic coach. So I wanted to get Travis Etienne, and the computer picked it for me. I don't know how it knew. But if he's going to be their starting running back, which I think people are saying he is, it sounds like James Robinson is going to drop to the bench and Etienne is going to take over his spot. I want Etienne on my team 100% because, Urban Meyer does a great job of varying the offense usually. He definitely has a lot of passing, but he also usually has great running backs. And so if he saw something in Travis Etienne to pick him in the draft, or the staff did, and I think Travis Etienne is going to be a killer running back in the NFL. So to get him in the 8th round, I think is going to be primo. I'd love to have Travis Etienne on my team. So the computer took that at 7 and 8, and I was like pissed because I didn't know at first, but then I was ecstatic when I went and looked at my roster and I saw they were on my roster. So what ended up happening in round 9 and 10, I was like, I can't believe I'm picking this guy in round 7 because I thought this was the end of round 7, but it took Henry Ruggs III. So say what you will about the Vegas team. I think Ruggs, is primed to have a star year. He was injured all last year, but maybe he's going to be injured all this year again. But I'm not going to beat myself up over it. I took him in the 9th round. You know what I mean? So it's not going to be like forever over for me. But I'd like to have him on my team. Round 10, I got to have my boy, Raheem Mostert. He's got to be one of the most athletic people I've ever seen play football. And he's so fast. I just can't believe it. So if he stays healthy at round 10, Raheem Mostert, even though Well, the coach likes him. The coach wants him to play, I'm pretty sure. So it just depends if he can stay healthy. I think he'll get enough touches to be a solid flex, or if not a flex, and at least be able to have bragging rights. Be like, oh, did you see Raheem Mostert? He's riding my bench and he got 13 points, or whatever, something like that. So I want him on my team again. I will be picking Raheem Mostert for the rest of his career, as long as I'm playing fantasy football. And even if he's not starting anymore, I will pick him in round 15, 16. I love that player. All right, and then I ended up going on auto draft for the rest of the round. So round 11, computer picked for me Johnny Smith, which I would not pick. And then round 12, it picked for me James Conner at running back for the Cardinals, which again, I don't think I would pick. Maybe though, maybe that's a bit of a sleeper pick. I don't know who the Cardinals are going to have at their starting running back. I forget who started for him last year. Was it Kenyon Drake? I have no clue. But anyways, I think it would be interesting to have a Cardinals running back on my team. It really would be. Because even though they have Kyler Murray, who's a great passer, maybe I should look into that. You know what, computer? You've given me something to think about. I'm going to look into that Arizona Cardinals running back. All right, round 13, it took Matthew Stafford and Trevor Lawrence. So great. I had 3 quarterbacks on my team. I was thinking about this. I was thinking maybe I will take Trevor Lawrence in round 16 just to have as a backup option. Because again, like I said, it's Urban Meyer, bro. He just wins, and he just wins. He wins. Maybe it's just college football, but the Urban Meyer I know wins games. So yeah, I'd take Trevor Lawrence, or maybe I'd take Joe Burrow around 16. They didn't do defenses, so computer didn't do defenses until round 15, which is controversial because I want the Steelers defense. Holy moly, do I want the Steelers defense. I think they're going to be just as dominant as last year. So I might be looking to take them in place of Jonnu Smith. So they did defenses in round 15. I got the Browns defense, which I wouldn't even waste a draft pick on the Browns defense. I'd just, pray that some late round flyer ends up blowing up. And then I got Harrison Butker as my kicker, which I wouldn't pick. I'd take Justin Tucker or Jason Sanders or Young Wei Koo. So anyways, okay. That was just a little draft insight because I ran out of Justice League general stuff to talk about. But there is... So this has been the Justice League, I guess the preseason podcast, pre-draft podcast. We can do a preseason podcast after the draft happens, and maybe I will look at everyone's drafts and maybe not give them a grade myself. Well, maybe I'd give them a grade myself. So I guess that's what we've got coming up next. So that probably won't happen for another month or so. But I was thinking about doing these podcasts or these, shows, podcast, I guess the best word for it. I was thinking about doing these podcasts all throughout the season as a way to debut my power rankings and maybe talk a little bit about what happened in the week that just went down. I think that'd be fun. So I'm going to try it. I wanted to have my, fancy podcast mic, which really isn't that fancy, but I've got a mic specifically for podcasts. Right now I'm just using my computer mic because I couldn't find my podcast mic. So anyways, hopefully I'll have that by the time the season starts. All right, it's been an hour, so I'll let you guys go. Happy fantasy footballing.